All right. Hello, everyone. Harkafune. Welcome to Ola's live discussion. My name is Biftu Adema. I am one of the volunteers for Ola, and I'm also your host for today's live discussion. As usual, I have two volunteers here with me as well, who I'm going to be asking some questions. And so I'm just going to ask that you guys stay with us until the end. Before we get into today's discussion, I want to give both of our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Obo Fantu Legesse. Welcome, Baganagan Duftani. We're happy to have you guys here. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, introduce yourself, and then what you do for a living as well?
Galatoma Biftu, Ashama Hundumtu, Batin Ola, Akkam jirtu, Watin Matin, Mukachitan, Alamana, Hundunaga jedha, Maqaan koo Fantu jedhama, kan dhaladhe guddadhe Finfinnee keessatti hunda duraa Ola carraan kan na kenneef galafachuun barbaadda. Galatoma.
Tole, galatoomaasnis Baganagan Duftani. Mammoo carraan ka guddisaati. Guddisaa, welcome. We're happy to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself as well, please?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Gudsatfa. I am a teacher assistant here at Ola, and I am 15 years old. I'm a student.
All right, thank you, Guddisa. So for today's discussion, the first question that I have for the both of you is, have you had a chance to learn Afan Oromo, Oromo culture, Oromo history, etc., amongst your family members? If yes, can you tell us what you learned? And if not, can you tell us why not? I'll start with Obofant.
My answer is no. Like I said in my introduction, I was born in Finfinnee during our time. It's very difficult. We don't even know, let alone the culture, something like that. It's very difficult to know about who we are. So I grew up in that environment. So technically, I know nothing. I don't know the language. I don't know the culture. Of course, there are a lot of people at that time, our area, but you can see one by one they moving out, displaced, or going to different places. So I didn't get a chance for a long time. I didn't learn anything. That's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Gudisa, can you tell us a little bit about if you had a chance to learn Afan Oromo culture, etc.? If you did, how? And if not, why not?
For me, this is a yes to a certain extent.
Okay.
I'm living in Canada right now, so I don't exactly get the opportunity of everyday living in Oromia, or getting that hands-on experience. But I learned secondhand from my parents, my family, and I did live in Oromia for 1 year, but that was when I was a little baby. And I lived in Nairobi, Kenya, also, where there was a pretty big Oromo community there. And uh, from birth and in my childhood, learning Afan Oromo and culture and these things were extremely important within my family and within my community, whether it was in Nairobi or whether it was here in Canada. There's community events, there are things we do that are really upholding our culture. So yeah, for me, it's a yes.
So you had that experience in your family and kind of in the community, and Obofantu, he did not. Okay. So I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to ask both of you this. So when did you start learning Afan Oromo, and how did you start Obofantu?
Yeah, I started Afan Oromo actually a few years ago, but I started to learn the culture, reconnect with my community a long time ago. I tried to go to different ceremonies like Erecha, Goa, in Bishoftu. I went there, I got a bad experience over there because that's how I learned language is very important. When I went there, The people are friendly, very happy. They want to talk to you. They want to enjoy the ceremony. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the language. I feel shame. So I keep quiet. I try to avoid people talking because I'm not speaking a single language. Then I said yes. So the language is very important. Before you learn the culture, before you learn the history, you need to communicate with your people. That's how I start to realize how language is important. That's my experience. And then I came here. I tried to go to Eritrea and DC, Goa and DC. So the same thing. It's very difficult unless you communicate with your people, your community. You are a stranger. So I feel bad. Then I start. I decided to learn the language. So far, I'm good. I'm understanding. I learn now. I can communicate. I can understand. That's how I started. That's my experience.
Okay. And I wanted to ask a little bit about your experience, if you don't mind. Just to clarify, it was your experience at Irecha and not being able to communicate with the people that was frustrating to you and that prompted you to learn Afan Oromo. Is that correct?
Not only that, I traveled to my family's ancestors, distant families to the rural area. I never,
Uh-huh.
the entire my life I spent in Fifinia. I go to school, everything. But lately, when I travel to over there, even though they are my part of my families, you don't feel it. You don't talk to them, you don't understand, you don't share anything. So still, I feel a stranger. I said, how come it happened? That's it's a lot of experience. So
Yeah.
that's how I decided to learn the language. So it's very important. Language, it's not a such simple things. It links
Yeah.
so many things. Links to your families, links to your community, culture, history. Unless you know the language, unless you speak your native language, all these things can be disconnected. So it's very important, right?
Hmm. And what was your experience like when you were in Oromia? I know it was difficult for you to communicate with family and it was frustrating and you felt like an outsider, but outside of that, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience?
Yeah, I feel it's amazing. The people, the culture, they're very friendly. They want to talk to you. They want to share to you. They want to enjoy to you wherever you go. Especially in Eritrea, every one of them want to talk to me. Every one of them. But I cannot give it back. So you need to talk to them. You need to give it back. When you get a smile, you need to give a smile. But it's
Mm-hmm.
very difficult unless I know. I feel shame, and then I start to avoid from the crowd, from the people. That's how I did it. So the culture, the music. I recently I start the listen the music, read the cultures about Gada system. It's amazing how rich it is. I missed it so much. There are so many people who miss that part too. So in order to connect with this, to understand this, to enjoy this family spirit, you need to speak your language. You need to know your language. That is how important the language. The people is very nice. The culture is rich. It's a lot of things hiding from public, especially the
Mm-hmm.
Gada system, the music, the literature. When you listen to music, it's amazing how they write it. I start to listen each and the lyrics. It's amazing how it's very, very, very nice. So you're gonna miss all this. So I missed a lot. So now, no matter what, I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna understand. I'm gonna take it back. Thank you.
Very good, very good. And I commend your efforts, Obofantu. Very glad to hear that. Gudisa, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Afan Oromo? When did you start? How did you start? And what kind of prompted you to learn?
So it's pretty interesting, my case. Um, I grew up learning Afan Oromo from birth.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't Afan Oromo wasn't something that I really I took Afan Oromo for granted really because it was my first language. But when I started to learn English when I was in Nairobi in preschool, and when I moved to Canada and everything is in English, that's when I started to lose, my Afan Oromo speaking. And once I got a little older, a few years ago, I realized this, and uh, I felt like a Bofanto, a little bit ashamed that how could I, forget my language. And so now in the situation I'm in, uh, it's almost as if English is my first language now, and Afan Oromo is my second. Whereas before, Afan Oromo was my first language, and English was my second. So in terms of relearning Afan Oromo for me, it came from Afan Oromo classes, not online, but when I was younger, they would have Afan Oromo classes every weekend in our community here in Saskatoon, Canada, and also at home, obviously. And especially my Afan Oromo really came back to me when I went to Oromia for the first time in 2019, and I relearned many things, and music also has helped me tremendously to relearn my Afan Oromo and even grow past what I used to be able to do.
Thank you, Gutisa. And then just to add on to that, I know Bofantu talked about why it's so important for him to learn Afan Oromo so that he can feel connected to his community. Why do you think that it's important to learn Afan Oromo?
I think it's important to learn Afan Oromo because if you don't speak your language, then you, as Bofantu said, you feel a stranger almost,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I see that here, especially with in the community with kids, kids who are born here in Canada in the diaspora, and they don't know their language and they kind of take it for granted. And I know that one day these kids, will grow into adults um, that regret not learning Afan Oromo sooner, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this, and the reason that you should learn your language is because I I I experienced this when I went back home, and I thought that I could speak Afan Oromo well, and it turns out that every time somebody said something, I felt, a little bit confused. Are they speaking Afan Oromo even? I get frustrated, right? And
Yeah.
they're much better than me, like 10 times better my speaking ability. But I felt weird about that, no realizing that I wasn't where I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially important to learn Afan Oromo and to know your language, for all people, all diaspora, from wherever you are. It's important to retain your language because your language is your culture, your people. This is like the bridge that connects you to all of your history, your past, and your heritage.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Very good. Thank you, Gudisa. That was a very thorough response. Um, and then, is there anything that you would like to add about your experience from back home when you were in Oromia with your family? You said that you picked up a lot more Afan Oromo that was coming back to you, that you saw yourself improving, but that you also saw that you weren't as good as you thought you were. Um, was it difficult relearning? How was it being there and communicating with family?
It wasn't difficult relearning. It was just, at first there was a kind of shock that I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. But eventually, if you live in a situation where you're speaking this language every day, you're hearing this every day,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere you look, it's Afan Oromo. And sadly, it's not always the case. Sometimes you'll hear other languages.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, it kind of flipped around where when I moved to Canada, everything was in English, schools in English. When I watch TV, everything's in English. And now it's flipped around when I come to Oromia, everything is in Afan Oromo. So now, um, I pushed English behind a little bit, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert at Afan Oromo. I'm still learning, but it's definitely helped me a lot. And it was only a 1 month, but in that 1 month, it taught me many things, not only Afan Oromo, but, you know, I never knew any Afan Oromo, idioms or sayings or anything like that until
Mm-hmm.
I went back home. And the culture itself, things that are you say safu, immoral things, like maybe
Yeah.
things that are allowed in Western culture, things that are a little bit strange in Oromo culture. And I also noticed some of the people who came with me to Oromia, they didn't know Afan Oromo, so they felt especially alienated. My little
Mm-hmm.
sister, I noticed she wasn't having the best time. She said that her favorite places to go in Oromia was the places where her cousins knew how to speak English. because that's where she felt at home. That's where she
Mm-hmm.
felt she could connect to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Gudisa. And both of you are in the Ola Level 2 Adult Afan Oromo class. Is that correct?
Level one.
Fantu?
Yeah.
Level
Yes,
1. Okay, level 1. Excuse me. And Gudisa, you are the TA for that class. And
Yes.
Obofantu, you are a student in that class, correct?
yes.
All right. So,
Yeah, yeah.
what have you learned?
Actually, I took this is my the third class I took before.
Okay,
That's
okay.
all
So,
yeah. Mhm.
can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned in that class of Bofantu? How was the class for you? Can you speak to us about that experience?
Yes. Okay. Like I said, this is not my first class. I took the previous classes with Dr. Samad and Mr. Samuel. So my experience is different because the composition of the students are very young. Most of them very young, and then I didn't see students in my age. So there is a difference between the settings, and then which I get advantage on this is that I got a lot of experiences, not only the language, from the younger generation, their sentiments, their enthusiasm, their energy, so many things, and then the interest where they lie. So this is a lot of experience I got. Plus, all it makes opens my mind to so many things. Not only the language, like I said, since I start the language from alphabet all the way down here, I start to listen to music. I start to read the culture. And then
Mm-hmm.
I took the Gada class too. I know a lot about Gada. Never heard about that. Even from my family. I took the Gada class with
Wow.
Dr. Tafari. So I got so many things. Well, it's a lot of resource. And then after that, I start to watch TVs from Oromo, different TVs. And then I start to listen music. I start to understand the music lyrics. Before I just listen the beat. That's it. I don't understand anything. Once I start to the lyrics, I start to impress a lot how rich Oromia is. The composition of alphabet, how the language is synthetic. It's not when you learn Oromia or Afan Oromo, you don't study the words like any other language. You just learn a few alphabets, okay, and then manipulate each other. So totally it's different. So I learned about Allah give me so many happy. People should take disadvantage. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Obofantu. And I just had a question. When you were growing up in Oromia, you knew that you were Oromo. Did you have neighbors or people around you who spoke Afan Oromo by chance?
When I was a little kid, I grew up like I born and grew up in that area. A lot of Oromos. That's a long time ago. But one by one, I think I am the only person lucky to go to high school, college, and that is one by one they disappear. Because
Mm,
it's very difficult to go to the middle school because your parents do not help you. They know nothing. So the system is not designed to help you. So unless you get help from your parents, it's very hard to succeed in education. So one by one, either they're going to the military or going to disappear to another area more outside. So
mm,
that's my experience. I struggle a lot. I'm lucky enough to do that. That's how I did it. So I didn't get anything from my community, but there are a lot. Actually, we can talk these things another place, but that's how that was it. It was very bad. You guys lucky at this young age. You have a lot of things digital. A lot of people motivate you to learn. At that time, we don't have that kind of things. We don't know even now. We are almost. Yeah.
mm. Okay. And so, how did you hear about the Ola Oromo Afan Oromo classes?
Yeah, here I was surfing on internet, and one of my friends told me about Ola. I joined the membership, and then I start to get the benefit. Instead of helping Ola, I
Mm-hmm.
benefited a lot. I learned so many classes, starting from the Gada language, so many things. That's how I learned it, and that's how I did it.
Very good. Thank you, Obofantu. Gudisa, how did you hear about the Ola Adult Level 1 Afan Oromo class? And then what have you learned so far, and what has been your experience in that class as well?
So I first learned about the Afan Oromo Ola class. I think it was last year. It was when Ola started first announcing they had classes. I remember I took the Gada class last year with Obbo Fantu. Dr. Tafari was our teacher,
Okay.
uh, and I loved the class and I got a lot from it. So now this year I thought, hey, maybe it would be good if I, instead of only benefit, to some degree used my abilities to help, So
Okay.
I saw on Instagram Ola's post on a vacancy for teacher assistants for the Afan Oromo class. So I was like, oh, I'm going to jump at this opportunity because, I get to be in the class experience class and see all the people and everybody's questions and these things. So I definitely recommend the class to anyone and all of Ola's classes really.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kuddusa. And then my next question is, how important is it to read Oromo books and consume Oromo media while learning the language? Obofantu, I know you talked a little bit about your experience in this, but have you found it beneficial to practice Afan Oromo by reading the books, listening to the media, etc.?
Actually, reading a book is very difficult. Oromo is not easy. It's difficult. But
Okay.
I listen most of the medias. Still, it's difficult. Some of them easy. Like let me give you an example. If you go to OMN, I can
Mm-hmm.
understand easily child too, but to understand Guyo is very difficult. It's a different dialect. So
Yeah.
that's a problem. I never understand Guyo is fast. I'll speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
advantage. You go to another media channel or another things, you get a lot. You benefited a
Mm-hmm.
lot. So many resources. You listen to music. Like in my class, they have a chat group. I'm not young to them, but I take advantage. They post music. They post so many things, so many resources. I listen to that. So it's a lot of advantage, even associating with them. you
Mm-hmm.
know. So that's a big advantage. Reading is okay, but I'm gonna do it in the future. But I listen a lot of
Listen.
media, a lot of TV outlets. You learn a lot. Not only learning, you enjoy it. You appreciate how it is rich, the language, the culture. I don't know all these things really. There are so many people behind the shadow. They miss this part, so that's why I encourage it. Just came out, learn the language and take advantage. Know about your families, your
Mm-hmm.
ancestors. There's so many things we don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Obofantu. I appreciate your response. Gudisa, what do you think? How important or how helpful is it to read um, Oromo books or consume Oromo media in order to help you improve?
I think that the first thing is always to find Oromo people, physically, people who can talk to you, whether it's family or friends, or even maybe if it's online. Just, you know, you first have to learn how to listen before you learn how to speak, and before you learn
Mm-hmm.
how to read, you should be able to listen and speak. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that maybe reading is something that comes once you feel very confident in both listening and reading.
Sure.
So I think for anyone who wants to learn Afan Oromo, the first thing is to find people who can help you. And when those people are not there, I think music definitely is a huge driving factor, especially for me
Okay.
it was in learning Afan Oromo. I remember just like Obofantu, I can't believe we have all of these similarities, but I used to dance to Afan Oromo music, and I just hear the beat. The beat is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dancing to it. I'm happy. The dances are cool, but I never really understood lyrics or anything. And once I started understanding the lyrics, it's just like today. I don't really know the last time I've listened to a song in English. To be honest, I do. Afan Oromo
Okay.
is the only thing I listen to these days.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that reading is something that comes later on, and just digital medias like listening to music or even news medias also listening to people talk about things seriously and an orderly fashion, kind of, that's definitely helpful also.
All right, very well. Thank you, Vitisa. And then my next question is, how do you think that we can pass on the knowledge of Afan Oromo to future generations of Bofantu? What are your thoughts?
I think it's not only about the duty of institutions, like ALA or community center or whatever, but it's about everyone individually. We have a responsibility as a community to do something, not only the language, to save our culture, to save our history, to save our food, our clothing. There are so many things. So all this is important for our future generation. So it's not only institutions. Everybody should work on that. Like so many things you can volunteer, like you guys doing, helping OLA, helping other organizations, Oromo communities. So all this is important. It's not a single, solution. It's multiple things add up, and then that's how you save it. So of course we need institutions. That's we suffer for a long time. We don't have a strong institution in our community. That's why we are disconnected. But still, individual effort, individual contribution, individual helping is very important. So everybody needs should do something simple, and that's how we survive. Plus, we should help like institutions like all us, and there are so many community organizations, and then we have to contribute help. That's how we do it. I think that's our solution.
Yeah, and just to add on to this question of Bofantu, I'm assuming that you have kids. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a father of
Okay.
four. I'm a father of
Okay.
four. Almost all
All
of
right.
them are in college. Yeah.
Okay. Very well. And so what would you advise parents? Like how should they encourage their kids to learn Afaan Oromo? I know it's difficult for the youth that have been born and raised in the diaspora. So how can parents encourage their young people to learn? How can parents pass on that knowledge to their children?
Yeah, first, they have to understand the importance first. For example, let me give you a good analogy. When I grow up my kids, to take them to different activities, first I need to know that activities and then understand everything, and then I take them because I'm going to help them. So the same thing here. If my generations, older people, if they don't understand the importance of language, the importance of where you come from, it's very, very, very difficult. You need to know first, and then you need to transfer it. So very important. Finally, at the certain age, they're gonna ask you. They're gonna ask you where they came from, about history, about so many things. So you have to be prepared for them. So it's very important. So I think it's encouraging to these days. It's a lot of resources. You can do it online. You can do it like different communities, different things. So I think it's very important to connect your families, your kids, where they came from. The language is important. The culture is important. History is important. Everything.
Yeah.
That's how they get rich in different aspects.
Okay. So just to summarize what you said, it's very important for one to understand the importance of Afaan Oromo in order for them to start learning and to encourage their kids. Very good. Thank you, Obofantu. Gudrisa, what are your thoughts? How do you think that we can pass this knowledge on to future generations?
I'd like to add to what Bofantu said. I think there are three main pillars for that to
Okay.
pass on Afan Oromo. And first, as Bofantu said, importance. Explain that why it's important. Explain why it's important. Show that there is importance in this, and that you may regret not trying to learn sooner rather than later.
That's right.
And second thing I think is to make it attractive, especially to the younger generation who are
That's right.
living in the West. And, you go to school, your friends speak English, having young people around you, that's something you're attracted to. You're not exactly wanting to sit around with older people always. You may want to be with your friends, or you might want to watch TV, and the TV is all English, and maybe that I think that making Afan Oromo also attractive to the youth is extremely helpful in that maybe cartoons could be a thing because I see my little siblings every time they open the TV, they're watching cartoons, and they're always talking about, hey, did you see SpongeBob did this, blah blah did this, and these things. I think that that's what pulls them in to learn English, and we could use the same mechanisms to pull them in to learn Afan Oromo. And the last thing that I think, the third pillar is to keep it consistent. You know,
Mm,
not make it something that is you only learn if you have an Afan Oromo class. It shouldn't be only something that you do on Saturday, Sundays. That's the only times you learn Afan Oromo or use Afan Oromo. It should be something that you do every day on daily life, and try to your best to keep it something that's close to you.
very good. Thank you so much, Gudsa. I appreciate your response as well. It's important to help them realize the importance. Number two, make it attractive. And then number three, make it consistent. Very good. And then kind of as a last question and to wrap up this discussion, what would you recommend the Afan Oromo class for non-Oromo people, or for even Oromo people that live within the diaspora but that don't speak Afan Oromo? Can you guys just speak to me a little bit about that? I'm going to start with Abu Fantu. Would you recommend this class? And also, what advice would you give them?
I think language in general is very good, especially in our country when the Oromo is the largest ethnic group. If you are interested to understand the people, to understand the culture, first you need to learn the language. Those non-Oromos or Oromos who don't speak Oromo language, I advise them to learn the language at any time. It's not the issue is not age or gender or whatever, but anytime you can do it, you can learn. So you enjoy it more or you can understand it more. So language is very important. So I recommend to anybody, especially the stakeholders, you better go and learn. There are a lot of resources. So that's my advice.
That's your advice, is to learn the language. All right. Thank you, Abu Fantu. And Gudisa, do you have any advice, and would you recommend this class to both Oromo and non-Oromo people? What do you think?
I definitely recommend this class, and I think my advice to both non-Oromo people and Oromo people who may not know Afan Oromo is first, in order to understand the culture, understand people, you should first understand to some extent their language, if their language isn't the same as yours, because there's this quote that we always have in class at the end of a presentation. It's that language is the boat that carries a culture,
Mm,
and you need to be in this boat along with language in order to make your way to understanding culture, because um, Oromo is widely spoken, is I think the third or fourth most widely spoken language in Africa. It's the
mm-hmm,
most widely spoken in East Africa anyway.
mm-hmm,
And if there's already so many people learning it, it's
mm-hmm,
helpful to understand this language if you're going anywhere in East Africa. And for non-Oromo, for Oromo people who don't know Afan Oromo, I think that it's in order to connect back to who you are, where you come from, your roots. It's especially important to connect to the language that those roots derive from.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Gudisa. That was an excellent answer. I totally agree with you both. Language is the means that we use to communicate with people, right? And unless we know somebody's language, it would be extremely difficult to talk to people from a specific ethnic group, or part of the world or region, etc., and to learn about them, to learn about their culture, to learn about what their life is like, and so forth. And so, yes, language is extremely important. It's extremely important to those who are Oromo, whether they live within Oromia or outside. And so Ola has an excellent resource, the adult Afan Oromo classes, both level 1 and level 2, for those who are interested in learning Afan Oromo. And so, do you guys have any final messages or any last things that you would like to say? Gudisa, go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
I just wanted to add one last thing to what I said earlier. I'd like to add that, in the world we live in, English is usually used as the lingua franca, the bridge between all nations, nationalities,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and whatnot. I think that, uh, when you go to university, you speak English, you read English, you do this thing because most of this knowledge comes from, Europe and whatnot. And I think that learning Afan Oromo helps you to learn the things that Oromo people have, because there's a lot to be uncovered that is
Mm-hmm.
waiting to be uncovered in Oromo culture and Oromo history, Oromo knowledge, and Oromo technology, whether it's uh, in medicine or in astronomy or what things of that sort. There's or democracy, even the Gada system.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things to be uncovered and to be learned. And so learning Afan Oromo would help you reach that point to learn these things.
That's right, and I completely agree with you. Thank you, Gudisa. Thank you both, Gudisa and Obofantu, for your input. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I know that those of the people who are watching us on live, that they enjoyed this conversation as well. I commend you both, and I affirm you in your desire to learn Afan Oromo, and I hope to see you guys continue in that aspect and encourage other people as well. For those of you interested in learning Afan Oromo, you can definitely visit Ola's website and check out when the dates are for learning Afan Oromo classes, and that way you guys can join. That's all for today's live discussion. Thank you so much to those who stayed with us, and thank you to our guests, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Galatuma.
Hayata.